Web 100. He also serves as an intelligence fellow for ALM. Finally, Mark is a global thought leader and innovator in the legal industry. He's the CEO of Legal Mosaic, a legal business consultancy, regular contributor to Forbes, where he has a column of the legal global marketplace, a regular moderator at The Economist, General Counsel Summit of Business Innovation events, and a sought-after international keynote speaker. That's why he's joining us today. And Mark, the floor is yours. So just give me 1 second to translate a little bit to Spanish, if it is possible. Lo que les he comentado es un poco de la trayectoria de nuestro querido Mark, y básicamente él ha practicado por mucho tiempo el derecho de manera tradicional como nosotros, como muchos de nosotros, tanto en el sector público como en el sector privado, como un abogado especializado en la rama civil, y ha tenido bastantes contribuciones para el sector de innovación, sino el sector legal en general. Es profesor en múltiples universidades, en múltiples academias y centros de formación para abogados. Y finalmente, el hito que lo conecta con el sector de innovación legal es Legal Mosaic, que es una empresa que él ha fundado de consultoría específica en estos temas. So, Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the my apologies for not speaking in Spanish. There was a time when I probably would have felt confident doing this in Spanish only, but those days unfortunately are past. So I'm going to talk a little bit today, and I hope that the not too much is lost in translation. I'm going to talk a little bit about digital transformation, what it means, and more particularly what it means to your legal careers, and how you might be able to prepare for a career as a digital lawyer. So with that, what is digital transformation? Well, we all know that the world is moving very, very fast, and that change is accelerating with it. It is change that is really involves all aspects of our lives, our personal lives, our professional. Let me tell you first what it is not. Digital transformation is. Digital transformation at its core is about customers, and it is about how goods and services can be delivered more effectively, efficiently, transparently, driven by data, provide more choice. These are the end objectives of digital transformation. Digital transformation is enabled by effective use of data, but it's human beings and human behavior and human adaptation, even more than the technology, that determines the success or failure of digital transformation. And I would add that success or failure of digital transformation is equally true to individuals as it is to enterprises. So what I mean by that is that each of you in the audience and everyone in the society, whether it is in South America, whether it's in Asia, North America, it doesn't matter. We are living in a digital world, and it is imperative for each of us, as best we can, to adapt to that digital world, to be able to understand the basics of the technology that is driving it, to be able to be conversant with the basics of data analytics. These are things that regrettably very, very few lawyers are taught or come into practice with that kind of skill. perhaps they learned it in a different life before they decided to become a lawyer. But I know of very few lawyers who have told me anywhere in the world that, yes, I studied analytics while I was at law school. And that's most unfortunate. So digital transformation is really evocative to me of Charles Darwin. For those of you who are not familiar with Charles Darwin, the famous English, and I always that when they hear the to see. And I said, well, I know you have a very famous library with some very famous original editions. I would love to see, if possible, an original edition of Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species. Well, they said, we can do that. And I went into this room and I had to wear gloves, and it was really very interesting. And someone opened up very carefully the book, and there on the front page of Darwin's book was the following: that the origin of the species involved this. It was all about adaptation. And Darwin wrote, it is not the strongest who necessarily survive, nor is it the smartest who necessarily survive. Rather, it is those who are best able to adapt who survive. So if there's one word that I would like you to keep in mind from what I'm going to talk about today, it is adaptation. The ability to see change as opportunity, and the ability to adjust. So this is really, I think, for everyone in this room and everyone in every virtual room. Digital transformation tests the human ability to think differently, to act differently, to use new tools that are coming online and now available to solve problems. That is ultimately all things that are ultimately going to be determined by our ability to use new tools and information and ways of doing things to collaboratively solve those kinds of massive, wicked challenges. So question, how does this impact you as lawyers, and how is that going to impact your legal careers? Well, law has lagged business in terms of its acceptance of new ways of doing things. In fact, lawyers, notwithstanding all sorts of awards for legal innovation, all these people who are self-described legal visionaries and legal pioneers, you ask business people and they will say, unfortunately, lawyers as a general rule have been very slow to adapt the digital journey. That is about to change. And it is not just because generative AI is suddenly been thrust into our consciousness. And suddenly what seemed very far away is not right here and right now. And just to give you an idea of just generative artificial intelligence, what a profound impact this is going to have, not only on law, but also on virtually every sector and every function within those sectors. McKinsey just came out with a report the other day that projected by the end of this decade, that's what, just about 6.5 years. In 6.5 years, they project that 1/3 of all all global jobs are going to be significantly impacted by artificial intelligence. And make no mistake about it, law is not going to be exempt from those changes. We as lawyers are not going to have to necessarily write code. We are not going to have to necessarily become artificial intelligence experts or cybersecurity experts or data analysts, but we certainly are going to have a rudimentary understanding of how those technologies and other technologies that are already coming online or are here, the cloud, and soon quantum computing. These are all things that are really going to affect your careers as lawyers, as well as the careers of all professionals, and people across different specters of work. So the question becomes, what do you do to prepare for this? And what is this going to mean for your legal career? Well, I don't profess to have a crystal ball, but I have been involved in the legal industry at a fairly high level for almost half a century. And I have always tried to look slightly around the corner to see what's coming next and to proactively try to get a handle on those things. And here is what I and a number of other experts are projecting that is going to happen. And this is probably going to happen much sooner than you think, particularly for those of you who work in law firms. Maybe less so for those of you who work in corporate legal departments. But whether you are working in a law firm presently, or whether you're working in a corporate legal department, or whether you're a legal design expert, or whether you're doing any number of different things, what you're going to see is the following. You are going to have to understand that your legal degree, which was once a other area, law, business, and increase now 35% of all Americans are most increasingly. So just having a law degree alone is not going to be enough. Lawyers, whether they are in the business and the speed of business and the tools of business, these are things that increasingly lawyers are going to have to do. Because for a very long time, law operated as if it was in its own world. It was an island unto itself. But today, law is very much a part of, it is a function. It is a part of using data, for example, to be far more predictive and to be far more proactive. So instead of just effectively, then a global access to justice assistance cannot get it. That is an epic problem. And it is frankly beginning to undermine confidence in the rule of law and democracy itself. The legal profession has got to do better. And even in the corporate side, where most people say, well, corporations have plenty of money and do spend plenty of money on lawyers. That is absolutely true, they do. But I can tell you that business now increasingly is putting more and more pressure on their corporate legal departments to operate more as business units, to move faster, to be more predictive, to use technology more effectively, and to be more customer-centric than ever before. Clients do not want legal answers. Clients want individual human or business solutions. They want problem solvers. Lawyers must begin to acquire a mindset of being a problem solver. And that's going to mean that lawyers increasingly are going to work with other paraprofessionals and with other professionals from other fields and with other business functions. This is the future of law. And most of you who have notions of traditional practice careers, I think had better reorient your thinking, because already there are fewer lawyers who are engaged in pure practice careers, and an increasing number of lawyers who are doing things like legal design, legal operations, legal analytics, risk management, and a whole range of other things. To be able to fill those jobs, and by the way, that is where the jobs are, and all projections are that is where the jobs are going to be. A lawyer has to be able to do more than just say, here, I have a legal degree. So these are some of the things I think that you're going to be. These are some of the jobs that are going to be created already. For example, months ago, released the bid of 3.5. Already, you have companies hiring people, lawyers, most of them are lawyers, who are able to write prompts for ChatGPT 4.0 and other generative AI platforms. That has already become a job category for lawyers, but not just lawyers with a legal degree. Lawyers who have invested the time and the energy to understand how, at least the basics of how GPT 3.5 and 4.0 and other platforms can be effectively used. So this should give you an idea of what your near-term future is going to look like. So the question I think that's begged here is, what can I do to prepare myself? After all, my firm is not really doing very much, or my company is not really doing much. Or a lot of people will say, well, Mark, it's great for you to be able to say this, but maybe you've forgotten that when you are working at a firm, and I have not forgotten this, that there's a tremendous amount of pressure either to bill hours, to get certain tasks done. It's basically summed up in these words. People will say, I'm too busy to learn new things. That is absolutely, positively the worst possible thing, in my opinion, that a young professional, whether it is a lawyer or whether it's a doctor or an engineer or anybody else, you cannot allow yourself to be too busy or think you're too busy for new things, because part of being successful in the age of digital transformation is to be a learner for life, constantly learning. I am now in my 70s, and there is not a day that goes by where I don't strive to learn new things. And that's not to say that all the other things I learned are suddenly become irrelevant. Quite the contrary. I am looking for ways to relate my experiences to the new things I'm learning and begin to connect dots. These are the things I think that young lawyers and even lawyers in their mid-careers have got to begin to do. And this requires a different mindset so that I too can be who say, oh my gosh, but aren't I basically rendering myself redundant by making these kinds of suggestions? Not at all. Not at all. The best thing that a lawyer can do to secure his or her security, whether it's at their existing job or at the next job or jobs that they hold is to continue to learn, to continue to think creatively. The World Economic Forum every 3 years comes out with a report, a comprehensive global report that covers about 160 different countries around the globe in all different industries and sectors. The two most important in rank order, the two most important traits or skill sets that across every one of the industries, sectors, and geographies, the two most important skill sets for all workers are one, the ability to think critically, and number two, the ability to think creatively. We all know what critical thinking is. Most lawyers are pretty good at it. Some obviously much better than others. But lawyers are never trained to think creatively. Quite the opposite. Lawyers are very often encouraged, look, just bill your hours, do the best possible legal work you can do, and that's it. And I'm here to tell you it is important to do the best that you can do, but within limits. You have to understand what the value of what you're doing is relative to its value of the end user. And you have to begin to think creatively of new ways to do things that might, make things faster, make things more efficient, reduce the cost. These are all things that are not just for senior lawyers to be thinking about, they are for all lawyers to be thinking about, because I assure you that this is what business is beginning to demand of lawyers, not to ask them to do it, but to insist that they do it. So what is it? What other things can you do besides try to be a learner for life? Well, there's a tremendous amount of knowledge and information that is available to you. Sometimes it's hard to know, what is it that's really valuable, what's not, what is really good, what's not. So I'm going to give you a very concrete suggestion. There are loads of people who write about the legal industry, and I'm not here to suggest that there are only a handful of people who write about it really, really thoughtfully. But I would say that one person who comes to mind is a very dear friend of mine. He's based in London. His name is Richard Susskind. If you haven't read any of Richard Suskind's books, take a look at it. Google him. Putting false modesty aside, you might want to look at some of my Forbes articles. I've written about 350 of them. And I talk about a whole range of things that are very relevant to what I'm talking about here. That is, what is digital talent? What kinds of different careers are lawyers going to have? What are they? How do they prepare for them? So that's one very specific recommendation. Another thing I would say is go online and look in terms of online courses that you might be able to take, whether it's legal design, whether it's baseline courses on digital transformation, whatever it may be. Start disciplining yourself to learn some new things. And the beauty of doing it online is that you can do it on demand. You can work around your own schedule. You no longer have to go to a university and get a degree to learn those new skills. Let me close with two thoughts. One, a lot of people think that technology is really, the be-all and end-all of digital transformation. I had said at the outset that adaptation and human behavior are key. Another essential ingredient, and it's one of the paradoxes of our time, that the more dependent we are on technology and the more widely used technology is in virtually everything we do. Interestingly, and maybe counterintuitively, humanity, people skills, things like empathy, collaboration, kindness. These are things that are very, very important. We have to be able to work with others. We have to be able to engage in teamwork. Again, these are skills which unfortunately law schools tend to ignore. They are critically important, because ultimately what separates us, at least today, from machines is our humanity. And we have to be able to begin to understand machines, and hopefully your generation is going to be able to have the skills to regulate and to create guardrails for those machines, so that the difference between humans and machines will be preserved, and our humanity will continue to be really what's critically important. And we will have machines work for us, not the dystopian notion of we working for machines. So in closing, I would just say, I think it is a very exciting time to be a lawyer and to be a legal professional. And by the way, not all legal professionals need to have a legal degree. So in closing, I'm just going to say that there is a tremendous challenge that is facing you in your careers, but there is an even bigger opportunity for those who are willing to adapt and to change and to take initiative in terms of leveraging their legal skills to learn new things, to build a better future, not only for the profession, but also for business and society. Thank you. Carol, let me swing it over to you for some questions.
Yes, sure. So thank you so much for your keynote speech, dear Mark. So I will just highlight very short some of the enormous amount of knowledge you have shared with us today. So I'm gonna do it in Spanish.
Sure.
Sorry. So then this is it. Entonces Mark nos comentaba en esta charla de si estamos listos para el derecho en la era digital. Nos comentaba básicamente lo siguiente, ¿no? ¿Qué podemos hacer nosotros para poder prepararnos, ¿no? Para esta era digital en la cual tenemos que practicar como abogados, como gerentes legales, como socios de firmas, asesores, consultores, etcétera, ¿no? Entonces, seguramente muchos de nosotros nos preguntamos si nuestro despacho, nuestro entorno, nuestra empresa está haciendo mucho al respecto o está haciendo poco al respecto, o de repente nos involucran demasiado. Tanto los jóvenes profesionales como los que ya estamos en un punto más senior, no podemos permitirnos estar demasiado ocupados por aprender cosas, para aprender cosas nuevas. En todo caso, tenemos que estar en estado beta y tratar siempre de aprender constantemente nuevas cosas. Ser exitoso en la era de la transformación digital implica convertirse en un aprendiz de por vida, que es lo que nos dice Mark. También no significa que lo que hayamos aprendido antes en la escuela de Derecho o en otras formaciones no sea relevante. Todo lo contrario, por ejemplo, Mark nos compartía de que lo que él hace es aprender cosas nuevas y conectar esos puntos con cosas que aprendió anteriormente, ¿no? Lo que él cree, dice, es que tanto los jóvenes abogados como los abogados que ya tienen mucha más experiencia deberían de hacer esto y no solamente enfocarse en la tecnología, sino también entender por qué la tecnología se está volviendo tan importante y cómo pueden aprender sobre el impacto de la misma o cómo utilizar estas herramientas para ser más efectivos en sus tareas, en su performance. Lo que un abogado puede hacer para convertirse en un mejor abogado o asegurar su trabajo actual o futuros empleos es seguir siempre aprendiendo, pensando de manera creativa. Y es básicamente lo que él nos cita también acorde al Foro Económico Mundial. Nos comparte Mark que este Foro Económico Mundial pues saca un reporte todos los años y indica que hay dos habilidades que el foro destaca y que son transversales a cualquier profesión en cualquier sector, y son las siguientes. Primero, la capacidad de poder pensar críticamente, o sea, el pensamiento crítico, y la habilidad de pensar creativamente. Claramente, Mark hace hincapié en que en la primera todos los del sector legal pues somos maestros, es decir, tenemos esa capacidad de poder pensar de manera crítica, pero en la segunda habilidad de pensar de manera creativa, ahí está nuestro talón de Aquiles. Por eso él comenta de que en todo caso debemos de insistir en desarrollar este pensamiento creativo y que básicamente tenemos que empezar a interesarnos por estos temas. Hay muchas formas de aprender. Él nos sugiere leer a su amigo Richard Susskind, que tiene publicaciones muy importantes e interesantes. También los artículos que, si no me equivoco, mencionó que son cerca de 315 artículos que Mark ha publicado acerca de qué es el talento digital, cómo prepararse como abogados para la era digital. Y también nos indica que, ya que estamos en la era digital, ¿por qué no nos metemos también en cursos digitales bajo nuestro ritmo horario, a demanda nuestra? Porque cuanto más dependamos de la tecnología, más impacta esa en todo lo que hacemos, y lo que las escuelas de derecho y lo que los abogados olvidamos, nos recalca Mark, es habilidades importantes como la empatía, la humanidad, la amabilidad, el trabajo en equipo. Y ahí nos dice Mark que es donde deberíamos estar haciendo mucho más énfasis, porque la tecnología está ahí, pero estas habilidades, estas características son las que realmente debemos de fortalecer y que son mucho más importantes que la tecnología. En nuestra carrera, dice, en el sector legal hay un tremendo desafío, pero también los que estemos dispuestos a hacer este cambio somos los que tendremos más oportunidades, los que tomaremos la iniciativa y podemos aplicar todo esto para mejorar nuestro negocio y aportar a la sociedad. Entonces, I try to summarize.
That was an excellent job. I understand Spanish quite well, and it was excellent. I'm afraid I have 2 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
And so, shall I take the first question or the second?
Maybe we can go ahead with the second question, because I think you told me that was the most thoughtful one.
Okay. So the question is, would you want to say it in Spanish?
Yeah, I will say it in Spanish, and then, okay. La pregunta que le vamos a hacer a Mark para cerrar este keynote speaker, es la siguiente. ¿Cómo visualizas tú, Mark, el impacto futuro de los perfiles híbridos digitales en el sector legal y su importancia para moldear este panorama, para aportar al ecosistema? Entonces, aquí estamos hablando de perfiles híbridos digitales en el sector legal. So, in English, how do you envision the future impact of hybrid digital profiles in the legal sector and their significance for shaping its landscape?
I think it's a very positive development. As I've said, lawyers have for a very long time done a lot of things that they didn't have to do, and others were just as capable of doing it. For example, lawyers don't have to summarize documents. Lawyers don't have to draft all documents. Lawyers don't have to negotiate all contracts. Lawyers, don't have to resolve all disputes. Their critical thinking skills and hopefully combine them with creative thinking skills. So I would say it's going to reshape the landscape for the better, both who retain them and the wider society. And Carol, if I could just say thank you so much for your great job of translating. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to your community. And it has been a great pleasure. And I'm sure the rest of the conference is going to be fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mark. Thank you so much. Have a nice day ahead.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Bueno, yo solamente quisiera comentarles un poco la última respuesta de Mark. Básicamente, él ya durante la conferencia nos habló un poco de que estos perfiles digitales híbridos son súper importantes. Mencionó el rol del legal designer, mencionó también el impacto de las operaciones legales o legal operations, y básicamente en la última respuesta que nos da a la pregunta que le formulamos sobre estos perfiles híbridos digitales dentro del sector legal, cómo contribuyen, él nos dice que tenemos que empezar a automatizar todo. De hecho, yo les quería comentar que gracias a ChatGPT y al buen oído de estar tomando los apuntes en inglés, he podido hacer como que esta traducción de lo más importante, un summary de lo más importante de su charla al español así rápido para que ustedes lo puedan entender. Y también, o sea, estoy automatizando, como él dice, y también nos habla de que es importante que tengamos más perfiles híbridos digitales dentro del sector legal que ocupen puestos de repente de líderes de proyecto, de gestiones de procesos, y que toda esta inmersión en automatización de tareas y perfiles híbridos digitales en el sector legal va a aportar mucho a reformular el panorama, a mejorar el sector legal, no solamente para los abogados, sino sobre todo para los usuarios y para la mejora en la prestación de los servicios. Así que sin más, realmente agradezco la oportunidad de poder dirigir este keynote speech de Mark Cohen. Muchas gracias a Status Red Legal, a todos los sponsors, a la Sociedad de Derecho y Tecnología, a ST Students. Y bueno, los dejo ahí en la conferencia. Luego nos vemos más tarde en el panel. Muchas gracias, Mayra y Mariana.
porque la inteligencia obviamente, o sea, si vamos a hacer lo mismo que hace la máquina, obviamente vamos a ser reemplazables. Entonces tenemos que aprender a no ser reemplazables, a ser únicos, ¿no? A utilizar esas herramientas. El mercado, que de hecho es nuevo también hablar del mercado cuando se habla del sector legal, ¿no? Porque antes era como algo muy social y todo esto que no deja de serlo, pero hay que aceptar que es un mercado laboral, ¿sí? Y que muchas veces no tenemos oportunidades o las personas creen que en el sector no hay oportunidades. Sin embargo, sí las hay. Lo que pasa es que no las estamos encontrando o no tenemos un espacio donde verlas. O no sabemos cómo mostrar nuestras aptitudes y habilidades al mundo laboral. Estamos en de mi tío, de mi abuela, y muchas veces no es así. Hay personas con muchísimo talento. Todo esto me ha llevado a poder crear una plataforma. Status es una red donde las personas puedan justamente conectarse, ¿sí? Donde puedan tener un currículum digital, ¿sí? Algún rato que tengan pueden entrar a statusbolivia.com, van a encontrar perfiles de estudiantes, de abogados, de docentes, para que a partir de ese perfil puedan postular a diferentes oportunidades en el sector legal. Puedan encontrar el que necesita un abogado, el que necesita un practicante. El practicante puede encontrar programas académicos, ¿sí? Trabajo en equipo, esa predisposición, esa actitud. ¿Sabes? Porque al final el conocimiento tú lo puedes leer, ¿no? O sea, puedes agarrar un libro, puedes googlear, puedes preguntarle a ChatGPT y te va a dar una respuesta. Sí, pero la actitud crítica, la postura ante un problema y de dar una solución, que es lo que decía Mark Cohen, ¿no? No necesitamos gente que haga trámites, necesitamos gente que resuelva problemas, y problemas actuales, problemas reales. Necesitamos gente con inteligencia emocional, porque a medida que va avanzando la tecnología, las cosas automáticas son lo de menos. Necesitamos gente que pueda liderar equipos, con quien tú puedas tener una conversación, que sepa manejar sus emociones en un momento crítico, que sepa mirarte a los ojos cuando está hablando, que sepa encontrar un punto medio de intereses en un conflicto, que pueda sentarse en una mesa y decir, ok, ¿qué te importa? ¿Cuál es tu...? Ya, ok, lleguemos a un punto medio, un acuerdo, porque somos personas. Y si bien se dice que la tecnología nos va a deshumanizar, pienso que en realidad es una oportunidad para dejarle a las máquinas que hagan cosas de las máquinas y dedicarnos a ser cada vez más humanos. Dedicarnos a resolver problemas de humanos, ¿sí? Porque nunca vamos a dejar de ser seres tan complejos y emocionales, por más que nos pongamos una corbata súper seria, formal y hablemos intelectualmente, no dejamos de ser humanos. Por eso es que la filosofía resulta que ya no es solamente para quienes quieren dedicarse a leer todo el día y no van a encontrar trabajo. No, señores, es ahora. La oportunidad de repensar las cosas que hacemos, la oportunidad de pensar de nuevo, de hacer las cosas de otra manera, utilizando la tecnología, claro, lo va a hacer más fácil, ¿sí? Entonces, esa es la propuesta que tenemos para ustedes en estos eventos y con nuestras empresas que han sido creadas para este fin, ¿sí? Para que le demos la vuelta al chip, empecemos a conectarnos con personas que nos interesan, con personas que tienen nuestras mismas perspectivas, o tal vez diferentes, pero que juntas podemos llegar a un proyecto, ¿no? Por eso estamos nosotros proponiendo esto del contacto profesional. Porque la verdad es que nadie crece solo, nadie. Tengas la mejor empresa, la mejor firma, seas el más top en algo, tú solo no creces. con alianzas, con proyectos, con otros talentos, porque esa es la tendencia en el mundo, equipos multidisciplinarios, donde el abogado se sienta con el marketero, se sienta con el diseñador, se sienta con el economista, con el gerente, y el gerente empieza a comprender las cosas legales y el abogado empieza a comprender lo que es administrar un proyecto, porque lamentablemente, y ahí está la invitación a las universidades, ¿no? Que a los abogados nos enseñen a administrar empresas, que a los abogados nos enseñen, que ahorita viene la charla esta, a tener una marca personal. Se creía que estaba mal vender servicios jurídicos. No es que esté mal, solo hay que saber cómo. No se trata de ofrecer un servicio legal como si fuera una hamburguesa o unos zapatos bonitos, ¿no? Porque es una cuestión humana. Entonces los abogados necesitamos saber ofrecer lo que ofrecemos, nuestros talentos, nuestros conocimientos. Por eso es que en Status hemos vinculado los perfiles, por ejemplo, a la revista jurídica, porque queremos que en cada perfil se vea lo que la persona escribe, lo que sabe. No es solamente porque me lo ha recomendado no sé quién, sino porque estoy viendo lo que hace, cuáles son sus talentos, que puede dar un curso, que podemos hablar en un podcast, que hay tantos canales para esto. Entonces, yo invito a las universidades, ¿sí?, a hacer más programas que puedan enseñarle al sector legal a combinar talentos con la parte de tecnología, con la parte de marketing, con la parte de gestión empresarial. Así vamos construyendo una sociedad mucho más dinámica, mucho más rica, ¿sí? Y pues este mensaje es el que se difunde a través de estos eventos. Estamos muy contentas de haber podido conectar estos actores tan importantes, que la academia no esté por un lado y las firmas estén por otro y las empresas están en su mambo, lo cual está perfecto, cada quien tiene muchos proyectos valiosos, pero ¿qué tal si nos sentamos a charlar, ¿no? ¿Qué tal si empezamos a compartir esos proyectos y hacemos proyectos más grandes? Este solamente es el inicio, porque realmente queremos hacer eventos más grandes y con una reflexión súper profunda. Esta tarde vamos a tener unos paneles muy interesantes, muy buenos, con gente que está liderando cosas, que está liderando empresas, que está liderando firmas jurídicas que han logrado innovar. Sí, estamos invitando a las firmas que realmente tienen una visión distinta para que nos puedan compartir. Y en ese diálogo vamos a ir encontrando respuestas. A quienes están estudiando todavía o están en sus primeros años, los empujo a salir de la caja, a animarse a proponer, animarse a compartir conocimiento, porque estamos en una era del conocimiento, estamos en una economía del conocimiento donde los datos y la información es lo que va a primar. Si sabemos usar los datos, si la convertimos en información y luego la convertimos en sabiduría, ya estamos. Un paso adelante. Y a quienes ya están ejerciendo la profesión, los invito con mayor razón a salir de la caja. Es más difícil porque ya estamos acostumbrados a hacer las cosas de una manera. Pero siempre darle la vuelta es una opción maravillosa. Les agradezco nuevamente por su tiempo. Los espero esta tarde, sean parte de ese debate. Y pues nada, gracias de verdad, un aplauso para ustedes.
Muchas gracias a la CEO de Status, Mariana Vilés. No se olviden, esta tarde tenemos nuestros paneles a partir de las 3 de la tarde, 3:15 en realidad comenzamos con el panel 2 de gobiernos corporativos, más adelante estamos con el panel 3 de desarrollo de negocios, el panel 4 que será arbitraje comercial, el panel 5 en Legal Tech y el panel último que será de business y negocios y tecnología, perdón. En la noche tendremos la sesión de networking y una cena también para compartir. Bueno, queremos darles un espacio también para que puedan ir a almorzar, refrescarnos un poco, volver esta tarde. La charla que tenemos desde Perú la pueden seguir en la transmisión en vivo. Está actualmente en unos minutos, en realidad 12:45 va a comenzar. ¿Sí? Es la transmisión en línea, la pueden seguir mientras estén en su refrigerio, en su almuerzo. Y también va a estar obviamente grabada para más adelante si la quieren ver. Nos vemos directamente a las 3 de la tarde y bueno, damos por concluida esta primera sesión de mañana, de nuestras jornadas académicas, ¿no? Un fuerte aplauso para ustedes y gracias por su asistencia. Volvemos en la tarde. Saludos.